Okay, let's talk about one of the most important decades of your life, your 20s. What if I told you there's a much better way to think about them than just, having fun? We're going to reframe this whole decade using some really powerful advice from the author Robert Greene to show you how to build a rock-solid foundation for the rest of your life. So, let's just start with that huge question. What is the real point of your 20s? I mean, is it all about finding a perfect career right away or traveling the world? Or is it something else? Turns out, how you answer that question can pretty much set the entire course for your future. According to Greene, this is where a lot of people go wrong. Most of us fall into one of two major traps. They seem like good ideas at the time, but they often lead to a dead end by the time you hit 30. Okay, so on one side, you've got the wanderer. This is the person who spends their 20s just having a blast, traveling, exploring, trying a million different things. And hey, that sounds amazing, right? But the problem is, by 30, none of those experiences have really built towards anything solid. Then, on the other side, you have the tunnel dweller. This person is laser-focused on one single straight path, like landing a high-paying job at a big firm. The issue here? They don't develop any diverse skills or really grow as a person outside of that one narrow tunnel. So if those are the losing strategies, what's the winning one? Well, Greene proposes this really powerful idea to guide you. He calls it the apprenticeship decade. The core idea here is to literally treat your 20s like an apprenticeship. Now, this doesn't mean you have to give up on all the fun and adventure. Not at all. It's about balancing those experiences with a real, deliberate focus on getting some solid, marketable skills under your belt. The goal is to get to 30 and be able to say, man, I had some incredible adventures, and I built something really valuable. The number one goal is learning. And we're not just talking about memorizing stuff for a test. We're talking about learning how to learn. It's about pushing through that inevitable boredom and frustration that comes with mastering something that's actually difficult, so you come out the other side with real, tangible, solid skills. So how many skills should you be aiming for? 1? 10? Well, Greene has a very specific and I think really powerful number in mind. 3. The idea isn't to be a jack of all trades, master of none. It's to go deep on 3 distinct skills. And this is what sets you up for some seriously unique and powerful combinations later on. Now, I know this might sound a little abstract, so let's look at a real-world example. Our first case study is the founder of Y Combinator, Paul Graham, because his story just perfectly illustrates how this formula works in real life. Okay, so Paul Graham starts out as this total whiz kid, a master programmer and hacker. But then he just hits a wall. He gets bored. And now instead of just pushing through it, he does something pretty radical. He packs up and moves to Florence to study painting. Yeah, painting. Years later, when e-commerce was just starting to become a thing, he had this light bulb moment where he realized he could fuse these two totally different worlds, his hardcore technical skills and his new artistic eye. And this right here is the magic of the apprenticeship model. He took his deep, deep knowledge of programming and mixed it with his artist's sense of design. And that unique combination is what allowed him to create one of the very first platforms for selling stuff online, which he eventually sold for millions. It was the fusion of those seemingly unrelated skills that created this huge opportunity. But look, this journey is rarely ever a straight line up. In fact, maybe the most important part of the whole apprenticeship is actually failure. And to really get this, we've got to look at the wild, zigzag path of Steve Jobs. This quote reveals a truth that sounds totally backward, right? If your career feels like it's just a perfect, steady climb, you might actually be in trouble. It probably means you're playing it way too safe, because real growth, real mastery, that stuff is forged in the ups and downs. I mean, just look at this timeline. It's a roller coaster. Steve Jobs has this incredible success in his early 20s, co-founding Apple. But then, bam, at age 30, he gets fired. From his own company. His career just tanks. He starts a new company next, but that fails too. His path was down, then a little up, then way down again. It wasn't until his late 30s that he finally made it back to Apple. So what was actually happening during all those so-called down years? He was learning. Those failures were his real education. He learned some incredibly crucial lessons about leadership, about strategy, all from the mistakes he made at Apple and at Next. And those tough, hard-won lessons are precisely what made his historic comeback possible. In a very real way, his years of failure were his most important apprenticeship. And all of this brings us to the ultimate payoff for investing in your 20s this way. See, it's all building towards a very specific, very critical moment in your life. Greene points to age 30 as this massive turning point. Now, it's not some scary, hard deadline, but it represents that moment when all the skills, the experiences, and the lessons from your apprenticeship decade should really start to click together and form a clear direction. So let's just boil this all down. What are the key takeaways? First, reframe your 20s. Think of it as an apprenticeship dedicated to learning. Second, aim to master 3 core skills. And remember, the real power is in combining them. Third, you've got to embrace that zigzag path. Your failures are your most valuable lessons. And finally, know that all this work is building toward your 30s, the decade where your unique mix of skills and experiences can really start to take off. And that really leaves us with one last, powerful question to ask yourself. It's great to have adventures in your 20s, but when you look back, what solid skills will you have actually built? What's going to be the foundation for the rest of your life? Answering that question, well, that's what the apprenticeship decade is all about.